Chapter 888. The three young ones were overly excited today, and fell asleep not long after they returned to the stone castle. Elvis and Leah accompanied Gu Mingming back to the room on the second floor, and closed the door before speaking with ease. Leah, Sandy's condition, is very similar to the fox's seductive fragrance. Although Leah had been roasting meat during the night campfire party, his attention was always on Gu Mingming, so he naturally heard the conversation between Colin and her. Fox seductive fragrance? Gu Mingming was taken aback. She suddenly recalled how Cole used a medicinal worm to frame Leah, and was tricked by him. That day, Cole appeared, and seemed to have said something about replacing Lee's position. Leah later told Gu Mingming that a male's fox seductive fragrance could only increase interest, but a female's could confuse one's mind. Leah nodded and said, "I smelled it when Sandy sat beside you just now. Although it was very faint, it was definitely the fox seductive fragrance." Gu Mingming frowned and asked, "Is there a cure?" Leah nodded, but his expression was slightly hesitant as he said, "There are two ways. The first is to find the person who bewitched Sandy, and let the original owner undo it. The second is to find someone who is better at using the fox seductive fragrance. With a stronger fox seductive fragrance, and a more skilled technique, the original illusions will be suppressed." Bewitching? Gu Mingming was confused. Leah nodded and said, "A female's fox seductive fragrance will cause people to hallucinate differently. But if used alone, it is just a purer sex secretion than a male's. But if paired with someone who knows how to bewitch, it can confuse one's mind." Gu Mingming frowned and looked at Leah asking, "Do you know bewitching?" Leah nodded and said, "Every tribe leader and witch doctor has to learn bewitching." Gu Mingming said, "Then use it on me once and let me experience it." Leah pursed his lips and said, "I won't use it on you, Humph." Gu Mingming was taken aback and thought to herself, "What the hell was with this sudden Sundara? What are you Humph for?" Looking at Gu Mingming's confused face, Elvis chuckled and played with her fingers. "He's afraid that once he uses the bewitching spell on you, he will not be able to control his greed and want more and more. First they'll fight for favor, then they might want to replace me, and finally, they'll want to kill me. I won't do anything to upset Mingming." Leah turned his head away, his face blushing. Gu Mingming chuckled. "Then isn't it settled? I'll only do it once. I just want to know what a bewitching spell is." Leah turned his head and refused to look at Gu Mingming, rejecting her coldly. "No." Gu Mingming facepalmed. "Then there's no other way. I can only look for Cole." "No." Leah exploded and glared daggers at Gu Mingming. "Let him cast a bewitching spell on you, and you will think that he is your partner just like Sandy." Gu Mingming was suddenly speechless. Why did her fox's IQ seem to drop when it came to matters related to her? I mean, look for Cole, and ask him to remove the bewitching spell on Sandy. I didn't say to ask him to cast a bewitching spell on me. Leah was taken aback. Clearing his throat, he turned his face to the side. "That won't do either. I don't like you looking for Cole. He smells like a fox and it's so smelly. Aside from the topic, recommending a good friend 9 Palace Lotus. School hunk's favorite. Kiss Piece Little Sweetheart, a wave of strong school sweetheart novels. It's free if it's not sweet." This was the story of an intelligent and calm girl, who silently defeated a group of rivals in love who surrounded her deskmate. In the end, she won the heart of a male god, but she just patted her butt and left in a carefree manner. In the end, she was carried to the bed and ruined. Below was a conversation between the handsome school hunk and his deskmate, who was pretending to be dumb. "Little cutie, I'll be waiting for you at the field after class." Why are you going to the field?" "There's grass in the field, just you. F***CKU? 1v1 on both sides. Losing everything. Exciting school life." The plot basically relied on each other, and the word count basically depended on coincidence. Chapter 889. Gu Mingming really wanted to remind Leah that both of them were from the same tribe, and were born from the same mother. So the taste was really not that different. But Gu Mingming knew that Leah would definitely explode if she said that. Moreover, she was not willing to compare Leah with Cole, so she just criticized silently, and did not say it out loud. Elvis patted Lee's shoulder and said, "It's all right. You just need to show Xiao Ming the process of casting the spell. Without the female's fox seductive fragrance, it won't have any effect." But Leah hesitated. Elvis chuckled and said, "Why? After rebuking the head of the household, you want to rebuke the first partner now? Are you trying to ascend to heaven?" Leah suddenly laughed and said helplessly, "You really pamper Gu Mingming. You dare to joke around with your position as the first partner. Aren't you afraid that I will cast a bewitching spell and make Gu Mingming give up the position of the first partner to me?" Elvis was unperturbed and raised his brows calmly and said, "You can try." Leah twitched his lips in boredom and said, "Tisk, forget it. The first partner has to maintain his bearing. This won't do. That won't do. Ha! I will just be a pampered partner." Elvis nodded and said, "Yeah, if you want to continue being pampered, don't go against the head of the household." Leah rolled his eyes at Elvis and said, I know. TSK, you are so daring." Elvis chuckled. Daring? Also not. He never dared to risk Gu Mingming. But if it was Leah, he was not worried. Leah was the same as him. He would not do anything to make Gu Mingming sad, right? Leah swayed his tail and sat in front of Gu Mingming. He closed his long and narrow eyes slowly before opening them again, meeting Gu Mingming's gaze with unmistakable accuracy. A red light flashed across his eyes and Gu Mingming felt her line of sight being held tightly by Leah, and she could not move it away at all. That pair of eyes was like a huge whirlpool, and the more she struggled, the deeper she sank until she could not see the top. Gu Mingming, you are very Russian now. You really want to eat stewed meat. You are very Russian now. You really want to eat stewed meat. Her vision was blurry and Gu Mingming could not see anything. She could only hear the familiar voice repeating in her ears. Gu Mingming's stomach twitched, and when she regained her senses, she felt a little hungry. "Leah, I'm hungry. I want to eat stewed meat." Gu Mingming blurted out subconsciously, and saw Leah and Elvis's serious expression. Stunned for a moment, Gu Mingming suddenly smiled and said, "I understand." "MMM?" Elvis hugged Gu Mingming and asked softly. Gu Mingming said, "Without the help of the fox seductive fragrance, although I will be bewitched, I will wake up in an instant. Bewitching spell? Hee hee." Gu Mingming looked up at Leah, her gaze carrying the hazy coolness of the moonlight. She looked like a little fox hiding under the night sky, so cunning that it was exceptionally captivating. "If I'm not wrong, this bewitching spell was imparted to you by the previous messenger of the beast deity, right? If it's her, she should be able to bewitch people even without the fox seductive fragrance." Chapter 890. Gu Mingming laughed and said, "Of course not. How is this bewitching spell? It's just hypnosis." "Hypnosis?" Leah asked. Gu Mingming nodded and said, "Yeah, it's a type of psychological suggestion. It's Wang Xiaoxin's specialty." Gu Mingming leaned back and rested her head on Elvis's chest, her fingers tapping on Elvis's arm in a rhythmic pattern. First, using the fox seductive fragrance to disturb a person's mind, then using psychological suggestions when the person's mind is weak to achieve the effect of hypnosis. But normally hypnosis would have a necessary key. Once this key is triggered, the hypnosis can be removed. Sometimes it's a certain keyword, sometimes it's a certain thing or a certain time. Simply put, everything in the world can be that key. So unless the person using the key to remove the hypnosis, the probability of trying to guess is too low, almost negligible. What are the chances of getting this key from Cole? Probably lower than Gu Mingming trying to guess herself. His original intention was to hold the people around Gu Mingming in his hands as a life-saving bargaining chip. So he naturally would not return them to her easily. Then there was only the second option left. A stronger person using the spell? Then did she have to dig Wang Xiaoxin out from the ground? The more Gu Mingming thought about it, the more frustrated she got. For the umpteenth time, why did she choose to major in human resource management in university? She should have majored in psychology. Rubbing her hair, Gu Mingming slapped her thigh and said, "I want to sleep." Elvis and Leah exchanged glances and said, "Go find the beast deity?" Gu Mingming nodded and said, "Yeah." Elvis sighed and kissed Gu Mingming's little mouth, saying, Don't sleep for too long. Gu Mingming nodded as a form of agreement. Elvis gently placed Gu Mingming on the bed that was covered with a thick layer of beast skin, then turned to sleep on the outside to block the side of the bed for her. He used the beast skin to gently cover her tiny body, and said while tucking in the corner of the blanket, "Sleep, I will guard you." Gu Mingming slowly closed her eyes, and allowed the drowsiness to engulf her. Her consciousness rose and returned to the clouds of white fog. The beast deity was sitting leisurely on a two-seater wooden chair, on a small patch of grass about 2 square meters, smiling at Gu Mingming. He stretched out his hand and said, "Daughter, you're back." Gu Mingming walked over quickly, tilting her head to look at the beast deity with an indignant expression. "I was tortured so badly in the beast world, but you are living so happily here." The beast deity smacked his lips. "Didn't you come back for pocket money? This is not obedient. Is it all right?" Gu Mingming choked. She clenched her fists and said, "You win." After she finished speaking, she took a deep breath and said with a kind smile, "Papa, I'm back to watch TV with you." The beast deity raised his eyebrows and laughed. "You seem like a scheming female antagonist who fights for inheritance in television dramas." A thick mark appeared on Gu Mingming's forehead and she faked a smile. "I am your only child. No one will fight with me for your inheritance." The beast deity nodded in agreement and said, "Yeah, what you said makes sense." Gu Mingming raised her palm and said, "I intend to be a hardworking daughter this time. I don't want anything else this time. Just give me a book." Chapter 891. The smile on Gu Mingming's face almost broke. She shook her head and sat beside the beast deity. Wrapping her arms around the beast deity's arm, she said, "Papa, I want a copy of Hypnosis, from beginner to master." The beast deity nodded. With a fatherly doting tone he said, "Sure, watch television with me first. I will give it to you after." "Sure." Gu Mingming agreed happily. Then, she crossed her arms and looked at the beast deity. With a wave of his hand, an empty space appeared in front of them. Familiar scenes flashed before her eyes. It was the same place she had seen the previous time. The luxurious shopping mall was filled with dazzling items. All the products exuded a luxurious and dispirited aura. Gu Mingming did not even need to look at the labels to be blinded by the dazzling light. Snake pressed Gu Mingming onto the sofa. Then he gestured casually. A young lady at the counter pushed 2 rows of clothes in front of him. Snake casually took a set of clothes and entered the changing room to change. After changing, he walked to Gu Mingming and asked, "Does it look good?" Gu Mingming was dumbfounded. Why was this hero not acting according to the rules? Didn't he say he was going to buy clothes for her? Why did he activate the Miracle Nuanuan's dressing mode? But it was really pleasing to the eyes. The 4-piece khaki suit on Snake looked like it was tailor-made for a model. He looked like a business elite, instantly killing off all the fake CEOs in television dramas. Maybe it was because the nobility he exuded was different from the aura he exuded just by relying on clothes and props. Snake had only asked 3 words. He did not even try to act cool. He just stood there quietly. It was as if he was the cover of a magazine. Gu Mingming had the urge to take a photo and lick the screen. Snake raised his left hand and looked at the watch on his wrist. He chuckled and said, "Yeah, you stared at me for 2 minutes. Looks like this set of clothes is not bad." Gu Mingming was brought back to reality by Elvis's words. She suddenly lowered her head and said, Who looked at you?" Elvis was in a good mood. He took 2 steps forward and hooked Gu Mingming's chin. His gaze was teasing. "Wipe your saliva before denying it. Maybe it will be more convincing." Gu Mingming instinctively touched her mouth, and realized that she had been tricked when she realized that the smile in Snake's eyes had deepened. She snorted angrily, and turned her head away from Snake. Snake did not mind. He just changed into different styles of clothes for Gu Mingming to see, before deciding which one she wanted based on how stunned she was. But she had to admit that Snake was a natural clothes rack. None of the clothes he tried on were bad looking, as if they were specially designed for him. And no matter what style it was, when it came to him, he was handsome. His handsomeness could explode the sky. So basically, as long as they tried it on, they would buy it. Until Snake wore a pure white suit. Because of Gu Mingming's memories, He knew that she was a fan of those Korean dramas where people wore suits and suits. From how she stared blankly at him changing his clothes today, that was indeed the case. As a result, most of the clothes that Snake tried on were suits, and most of them successfully attracted her attention. There were even a few sets that this girl was infatuated with. But when this pure white suit appeared, Gu Mingming was stunned for a few seconds. Then, she suddenly burst into laughter. She laughed so hard that she could not even stand straight. Aside from the topic, today's update ended. Chapter 892. Snake's hair stood on end from Gu Mingming's laughter. He turned back to look at himself in the mirror helplessly, but did not see anything strange. He frowned, feeling somewhat disappointed. Gu Mingming laughed for a long time without any intention of stopping, so Snake could only walk to her and pinch her little face. He pulled her into his shadow and asked, "What are you laughing at?" Snake's pressure was too strong, and Gu Mingming was instantly terrified. She did not dare to laugh anymore. Holding back her laughter, she lowered her head and shook her head slightly, saying, No, Senior is very handsome. You look handsome no matter what you wear." Uffed. Snake gritted his teeth and said, "Have you seen the work manual? What will happen if you lie to me?" The Evil Treaty of 794. Gu Mingming looked up at Snake, thinking that she could not afford to pay the compensation fee of $450,000, so she chose to be honest. "Actually, I'm not laughing at anything. I just feel that wearing a full white suit makes me look like a famous and iconic character." Snake quickly tried to recall which celebrity's iconic white suit was worn, but no matter how he thought about it, he could not think of anything. So he could only raise his brows and ask, "Who?" "KFC," Gu Mingming said as she laughed. She could not hold it in any longer, clutching her stomach and rolling on the sofa in laughter. "Gu Mingming." Snake enunciated her name word by word. Gu Mingming also knew that it was not nice to laugh at her boss like that, but she really could not control herself. For the sake of her own job, Gu Mingming laughed while trying to salvage the situation. "Senior, listen to me. Even if it's KFC, it must be the KFC that was at its peak when it was young. Haha. Yes, the most handsome KFC is definitely you. Ha ha ha." If it was anyone else who dared to be so presumptuous in front of Snake, they would probably be crushed to the point where not even their bones would be left. But for some reason, facing Gu Mingming, who was laughing like an idiot, Snake could not find any trace of anger in his heart. Instead, the corners of his lips curled up along with her laughter, and his heart was filled with joy. Releasing Gu Mingming's chin, Snake returned to the fitting room to change out of the white suit, and wore his initial set of clothes. When he came out, he said to the salesgirl, "The clothes I picked just now, each one is matched with 10 sets of women's clothing. They are her size." With that, he pulled Gu Mingming away without waiting for the counter lady's reply. Gu Mingming was dumbfounded. Snake had tried on at least a dozen sets of clothes just now. If each set was paired with 10 sets of female clothing, that would be more than 100 sets of new clothes. Damn, he's so rich that he's inhumane. The clothes sold here were so expensive. Gu Mingming's liver would tremble for a few days just to buy one set, let alone 100 sets. Even if she was sold, she wouldn't be worth the price of the clothes. "I don't want new clothes. You can buy them for yourself. Don't buy them for me. I don't want them." Snake paused and turned to look at Gu Mingming. "I bought all my clothes that you like. I spent so much effort to please you. Shouldn't you repay me a little?" Gu Mingming felt that when she was talking to Snake, her intelligence was always not online. She could not understand what he was saying at all. He roared inwardly, "Speak human language, hey." Chapter 893. Snake's tone was light, like a feather caressing the tip of her heart. His warm breath sprayed into Gu Mingming's nose, making it extremely ambiguous. "In the future, you are only allowed to wear the clothes I buy, and use the things I buy. From head to toe, you are only allowed to stick my label." Gu Mingming blinked and asked awkwardly, "Are you trying to keep me as your mistress?" Snake's smile deepened as he savored the word keep. He thought for a while and said, "That's not impossible." Gu Mingming lifted her leg and kicked Snake's calf. She lowered her body and crawled out from under Snake's armpit. After running for 7 to 8 steps, she turned around to look at Snake and said, "Let me tell you, I buy my strength and not my body. If you want to play with the unspoken rules of the workplace, you can find someone else. I am not going to be crazy with you." Snake was not annoyed and instead smiled. He turned around and leaned against the car door, crossing his arms and looking at Gu Mengmeng. TSK, even his Tuming's angry look was so pleasing to the eye. She was a good girl with principles. "Tu Meng, come here." Snake waved his hand, and then put his palm up, waiting for Gu Mengmeng to put her hand in. Gu Mengmeng took another step back, and looked like she would rather die than submit to Snake. Snake was not in a hurry and just smiled. "You are now my personal assistant, and need to accompany me to all kinds of occasions. In other words, you are my face. If you dress shabbily, you will be embarrassing me. So these clothes can only be considered as work clothes, and were given to you by the company." Gu Mengmeng thought about it. She felt that there was nothing wrong with Snake's words. Blushing, she felt that she might have overreacted just now. Clearing her throat, she said, That label whatever." Snake still maintained his inviting posture with his palm up and continued to answer. "My personal assistant from head to toe. Every detail must be perfected. Your own taste." Gu Mengmeng looked at Snake's indescribable expression, and then looked down at her own clothes. She blushed. A Taobao t-shirt with 29 free shipping, a pair of jeans with 69 free shipping, a pair of shoes with the same style that he bought last year on Double 11, and a large school bag that he bought at the night market. This outfit really doesn't match the identity of a big CEO. Snake was not in the mood to mock Gu Mengmeng. The pain she had suffered over the past decade would only make his heart ache. Seeing that she was not coming over, Snake strode forward and grabbed her little hand, bringing her into his arms. His large hand gently caressed the back of her neck, and his lips pressed against her ear, whispering, "The next time I call for you, you have to come over to my side. Do you understand?" Snake's embrace was so warm that Gu Mengmeng forgot to struggle free. For some strange reason, he responded with an N, but he had no idea what his current situation was. The corners of Snake's lips curled up, his eyes filled with gentleness. His voice was so gentle that it numbed all of Gu Mengmeng's bones, but he did not realize how much affection and infatuation he had revealed. "You can't go back on what you've promised me. I've waited long enough. One more second. I don't want to wait any longer. So the next time I call for you, if you don't come to me, I will come to you." Gu Mengmeng's heart felt as if it was being tugged by someone. That violent trembling made her feel a little dazed. It was as if something was surging through his heart, but it was too intense, and he couldn't hold on to it. Chapter 894. The next morning, Gu Mengmeng refused to take Snake's car to school no matter what. Snake did not force her, and only sent her to the bus stop. Then, he watched her board the bus, and drove his sports car slowly behind the bus. The bus stopped at one stop after another, and he also stopped at one stop after another, until Gu Mengmeng alighted from the bus, and turned around to see a flamboyant person sitting in the flashy sports car, waving at her and smiling happily. Gu Mengmeng turned and walked away, pretending that she did not know that flamboyant person driving the sports car. The moment she entered school, Gu Mengmeng felt strange. Everyone seemed to be pointing fingers at her and gossiping about something. By right, other than a few girls in the same dormitory, not many of her classmates would be able to call out her name. How did she suddenly become the center of attention? Gu Mengmeng looked left and right, looking confused. She thought to herself, perhaps it was because Snake ran into the classroom and hugged her for the entire lesson yesterday? She did not take it to heart, and just quickened her footsteps to the classroom. She sat in a corner and leaned on the table, burying her face in her arms. She could not sleep well last night, because she had been thinking about all sorts of things. Now, she was so sleepy that she fell asleep unknowingly. She did not even know when Snake had sat beside her again. This lesson was Professor Zhang's. This professor was an old pedant and old-fashioned. He always talked about respecting teachers and principals, and paid great attention to class discipline. In his class, all university students were scolded like kindergartners. They had to sit properly, or else he would feel that they did not respect him. Then, the graduation grade would be, haha. Gu Mingming should have sat in the corner and buried her head in sleep. But this girl was so sleepy yesterday that not only was she sleeping, she was also snoring. Although her snoring was soft and looked especially cute to Snake, to Professor Zhang, it was an affront. A piece of chalk was thrown towards Gu Mingming and was caught by Snake in midair. You! Professor Zhang's eyes widened in anger. Snake stood up slowly and said, she studied very late last night and needs to catch up on her sleep now. This was the first time Professor Zhang had been contradicted, and he was furious. But Snake did not give him a chance to speak and continued, I will make up for the content of this lesson for her alone. It will not affect the professor's performance. Professor Zhang was so angry that the hand he pointed at Snake with was trembling. Snake chuckled and said, I suggest the professor to continue with your class. Don't waste everyone's time and don't disturb her sleep. Professor Zhang slammed the blackboard eraser on the podium and said angrily, I won't let her pass the final evaluation. Snake slowly sat down and chuckled. I hope your term of office can last till the end of the semester. Gu Mingming raised her head in a daze and asked with sleepy eyes. Huh? What happened? Snake rubbed her little head and draped his jacket over her head. It's all right, continue sleeping. Professor Zhang was infuriated and felt that he had no way out of this embarrassing situation. Hence, he flicked his sleeves and left, leaving the rest of the class to look at each other in dismay. They watched as Snake watched Gu Mingming sleep for an entire lesson. Chapter 895. I was afraid that someone would be beside you while you were sleeping, so I came over to guard my position. Snakel smiled at Gu Mingming, his voice gentle and calm, with a tinge of sweetness. Goosebumps rose all over Gu Mingming's body. She shrugged her shoulders and said, Get up, I need to go to the toilet. Snakel stood up and made way for Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming turned sideways and Snakel followed behind her. Seeing how awkward she was because of him, the corners of his lips curled up, and his eyes were filled with love. Gu Mingming entered the toilet and randomly found a cubicle to close the door. She had just squatted down when she heard the discussion outside the door. Did you hear? That kept woman. Do I even need to hear? Her photo has already been posted on the school forum. TSK. She usually doesn't show off much, but she's actually a powerful vixen. Isn't that so? Confessing to the basketball captain in the morning, getting intimate with the coolest school hunk in class, and still meeting her sugar daddy after school. She's pretty good. Isn't that so? The basketball captain's stamina is famous for not collapsing overnight. The coolest school hunk used to be in the swimming team. His body is also amazing. I wonder who her sugar daddy is, dating 3 men in a day. She's really like a wolf and a tiger. Gu Mingming was confused at first, but the more she heard, the more she felt like they were talking about her. But she knew about the confession to the basketball captain. She also knew about the relationship with the coolest school hunk. What the hell was a kept woman? Taking out her phone, Gu Mingming hurriedly logged into the school forum. Title: First-year student has a powerful background, luxury car, villa and exhibition. There are photos to prove the truth. Gu Mingming clicked on it and felt like she was struck by lightning. There was a photo of her standing at the entrance of Snakel's villa. At that time, Snakel was at the entrance, but he couldn't be seen due to the angle. He could only see her standing in a daze at the open door of the villa, about to walk in. There was also a photo of her alighting at the entrance of the exhibition, as well as various branded paper bags neatly stacked on the ground, then tied together with a red silk cloth, with a label on it that said to Gu Mingming. The accompanying text was all sorts of incitement and speculation, with the general direction being that she was kept by a rich businessman. There were countless scandals, such as selling yourself in junior high school, having 5 abortions in 3 years of high school, and so on. Gu Mingming held onto her phone, so angry that her fingers were trembling. Her entire body was ice cold, but she could not say a single word. Her tears fell uncontrollably, but she could not cry out. For so many years, no matter how hard life had been, She had at least persisted in exchanging money through labor and being a good girl. You can be poor, but you can never be cheap. Self-respect and self-respect were the few things she had left. How could these ignorant people trample on her like this? The bell for class had already rung, and the people in the restroom had already left. Snake, who was waiting at the door, frowned. Not seeing Gu Mingming coming out, he walked in. Tu Meng. Snake called softly. Gu Mingming did not say a word, and just stood up hurriedly to pull up her pants. Tu Meng. Snake raised his voice. Gu Mingming wiped away her tears, not wanting Snake to see her crying. Chapter 896. This tiny sound successfully attracted Snake's attention. Without another word, he lifted his leg and kicked the bathroom door open. Looking at Gu Mingming, who was curled up in a corner crying her eyes out, Snake frowned in heartache. He hugged Gu Mingming in his arms and caressed her back, ignoring her struggles. Don't cry, you're so ugly. Don't bother about me, sob sob sob, let go of me. If someone sees this, I won't be able to explain myself. Let go, let go. The more Gu Mingming struggled, the tighter Snake hugged her, until she could no longer exert any strength, and lay obediently on his shoulders, twitching and shaking. Snake then said, Tell me, why are you crying? Gu Mingming looked at Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming refused to speak, and just kept crying. Snake didn't want to force her, and just carried her to the underground car park. He stuffed her into the car, and brought her back to the villa. By the time they reached the villa, Gu Mingming's emotions had more or less calmed down. Her nasal voice was still very strong, but she no longer cried. Why did you come back? We only had one lesson. Snake glanced sideways at her and said, I am the boss. I will arrange whatever I say. You just have to obey, and don't have to question. Without explaining further, Snake pushed Gu Mingming into her room and said, Shower and change your clothes. I don't like to see you in such a disheveled and pathetic state. With that, he slammed the door shut and returned to his own room. Just one lesson? Ha, so what? How could he let others see her crying? Her tears could only fall in front of him. Picking up his phone, Snake dialed a number and said, 3 minutes. Find out what happened to her today. With that, Snake hung up without waiting for the other party's reply. Sitting on the big office chair, Snake crossed his hands on the office table. His gaze was cold and sinister, and he exuded a violent aura. It was as if the surrounding air was filled with black particles, making one feel suffocated and terrified. A minute and a half later, Snake's phone screen lit up. Other than the post on the school forum, there was also the list of people discussed in the female washroom, and the content of the discussion. Of course, the attached page clearly listed who posted the post on the school forum, and where the photo came from. Snake's finger lightly brushed past the name on the last page. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, as if the death god was announcing the arrival of darkness. Gu Mingming changed into a clean set of clothes after washing up. Snake had thrown away her previous clothes, so if Gu Mingming didn't want to run around naked, she could only wear the clothes Snake had bought for her yesterday. The good thing was that they were all arranged in sets, so there was no need to worry that Gu Mingming would randomly dress Chanel into a killer. When she came out of the room, Snake was already standing at the door. Looking at the pink dress Gu Mingming was wearing, his lips curled up slightly. Yeah, it matched his clothes perfectly. The simple ponytail was full of youthfulness and wildness. It was far less exquisite than some girls who would play tricks on their hairstyles, but it made people feel natural and comfortable. Snake was satisfied with Gu Mingming's outfit. He held her hand and returned to the sports car, heading straight for school. Chapter 897. Snake parked the car and brought Gu Mingming into the performing arts class. There were already 2 rows of bodyguards dressed in black standing guard at the entrance of the classroom. The principal and a group of administrators were already waiting at the entrance. Upon seeing Snake, the principal bowed respectfully and did not say a word. The group of administrators followed behind Snake in an orderly manner, according to their positions, and entered the large classroom in a single file. The performing arts class was a rather ostentatious one. The students in this class were all handsome and pretty, and all of them were children of a certain family background. They might not necessarily walk the path of an artist in the future, but were sent here to cultivate their aura. The lectern on the podium had already been removed and replaced by a large chair. Snake turned around and sat down. Gu Mingming did not understand, and just stood quietly behind Snake with a dumbfounded expression. Snake's gaze swept across the faces of everyone in the classroom, then curled his lips coldly. His voice was so cold that there was not a single trace of emotion. Every word he said was like a sharp blade made of ice, wreaking havoc on everyone's hearts. My Tuming said that everyone has a fixed label on them. The one that stuck on me previously seemed to be the mute school hunk. No one dared to reply. It was so quiet that even the flow of air seemed to be noises, and breathing was unnecessary. I'm not very satisfied with this label, so I want to change it. Snake leaned against the back of the chair lazily. With a pull of his large hand, Gu Mingming fell into his arms. She wanted to struggle, but Snake did not give her the chance. He wrapped one arm around her waist and allowed her to struggle, but she could not leave his embrace at all. Snake leisurely admired Gu Mingming's every move until she completely gave up struggling and obediently nestled in his arms. He then continued in satisfaction. I feel that the label of holding a grudge and covering up for my shortcomings is not bad and suits me very well. In order to let everyone have a deep impression of this new label, I have decided that from today onwards, I will kill anyone who dares to touch my Tumeng. There was a series of gasps, and the temperature in the classroom dropped by a few degrees. The thread regarding Gu Mingming was a hot topic in the school forum. Although it was suddenly deleted 20 minutes ago, there were thousands of people discussing it. In this classroom, everyone felt insecure. Snake's gaze scanned through them one by one and finally landed on the face of the school belle, Missouri Bebe. Let's start with you. Mo Bebe shuddered and bit her lower lip as she glared at Snake. She wanted to tell herself not to be afraid. Although Snake was handsome, he was just a university student, and there was nothing to be afraid of. Wasn't it just standing up for his girlfriend? There were many people who were willing to stand up for her. It's okay. But the headmaster and the others were standing on the podium, but he was sitting. The rows of black-clothed men at the door also told Mo Bebe that she was too naive. And the source of all this fear came from the person sitting on the podium. He was like the uncrowned king of hell, unrestrained, killing at will, crushing everything, and looking down on everything. Snakel glanced sideways, and with a glance, the man in black at the door walked to the front of the podium with an iPad and connected it to the classroom's projection equipment using Bluetooth. Then the big screen showed erotic pictures one after another. The main character of the pictures was none other than the school belle Missouri Bebe. Chapter 898. Everyone could hear the deeper meaning behind Snake's emphasis on the word miss. When he looked at Mo Bebe again, his gaze was filled with obscenity and disdain. Impossible, this photo is a composite. It must be. Mo Bebe was making her final struggle. Her live stream was always burned after viewing it, so there was no way there would be any evidence. This was at most a screenshot of those otakus, as long as she denied it. But Snake smiled and said, I don't want my Tuming to see such filthy things, it hurts her eyes. So I will send the original video up later. As Snake said that, the man in black specially opened a folder. There was a short MP4 video in it, lasting 49 minutes and 26 seconds. The cover was a close-up of Mo Bebe's underwear. Meng Meng's face paled and she bit her lower lip, unable to say a word. But Snake did not let her off and continued. I heard that you can get Miss Mo's contact details by sending 10 yachts. 50 yachts to invite Miss Mo out for a one-to-one live broadcast? Yeah, I contacted a few Miss Mo's very close friends, and they gave me some especially exciting treasured videos. I feel that they are really too good, so I have already sent them to Miss Mo's parents, and the leader of your parents' unit as a gift. Mo Bebe looked at Snake, her gaze starting to slacken. She trembled all over, but could not say a single word. Oh right. Miss Mo has taken such good care of my Tumeng. So in return, I have already invited a few especially close friends of yours to the scene. They will cooperate with Miss Mo to showcase your acting talent to everyone. In order to realize Miss Mo's dream of becoming a star and let you shoot to fame. This performance will be broadcasted live on the livestream platform. Every student in the school will have a VIP account, and it has already been sent to everyone's phones in the form of text messages. With that, Snake carried Gu Mingming and stood up. He was as elegant as a prince in a European castle. He smiled and said, "Then, I shall not disturb everyone from enjoying the exciting show." Before he finished his sentence, Snake had already carried Gu Mingming out of the classroom. A group of school leaders followed Snake out, and the girls in the classroom also jogged out. However, a few brave boys stayed in the classroom and had already started to lay their hands on the former goddess. After everyone had left the classroom, 5 wretched and greasy middle-aged men wearing masks walked in. Gu Mingming could not hear any of the cries for help and groans coming from the classroom due to the distance. She only thought that Snake was just scaring her. Snake carried Gu Mingming into the principal's office. The school leaders stood in a row in front of Snake. Snake stretched out his hand and took a name list from the hands of the man in black. He passed it to the principal and said, "The school's atmosphere should be rectified. What do you think?" "Principal?" The principal respectfully took the name list, lowered his head and said, "You are right. I will definitely deal with the disciplinary issues seriously." Snake nodded and did not want to say anything more. He was not in a good mood, because Gu Mingming did not want him to hug her. Holding her little hand, he stood up and walked out. When he reached the door, he suddenly stopped and turned to look at the principal, saying, "Professor Zhang." Professor Zhang will reach the retirement age next week. The school has already given up on the counter-employment plan. He will leave this Friday. The principal answered directly. Chapter 899. The scene froze at the back view of Snakel leading Gu Mingming away. The white fog filled the air again, sealing the empty space. Gu Mingming stretched lazily and stood up with her palm facing upwards. "Daddy, pocket money." The beast deity chuckled, as if he was looking at his own willful daughter. He slapped Gu Mingming's palm. "I feel that Hypnosis, From Beginner to Expert, is not a good book. Daddy, can you recommend a more practical one?" Gu Mingming raised her brow. She looked at the beast deity with a sneaky smile and replied, "Oh." The beast deity lifted his finger. There was a small white dot on his index finger. It was not tangible, and looked as if his finger was glowing. It was not glaring. The glow was gentle and light, a little like pearls under the sun with a hazy glow. The beast deity tapped Gu Mingming's brow lightly. Gu Mingming's eyes instantly lost focus, and she fell into a state of nightmare. It was as if something was rapidly squeezing into her brain. It was so fast that Gu Mingming could not react in time. She only felt many things filling up her thoughts. It was as if she suddenly knew something she did not know in the past. It was about a minute, but to Gu Mingming, it was a long time that could be counted in microseconds. When the beast deity removed his finger from Gu Mingming's brow, Gu Mingming's eyes slowly regained their focus. Blinking, Gu Mingming looked at the beast deity in a daze. The beast deity chuckled. "How is it, my dear daughter's cheating cheat? Are you satisfied?" Gu Mingming supported her head with one hand and slowly extended a finger with the other. She waved it twice in front of the beast deity, then suddenly laughed. "Whose memories did you implant into my brain?" Gu Mingming's expression changed. The beast deity placed his index finger on his lips and gestured for her to keep quiet. More accurately, it is not anyone's memory. It is just a portion of someone's knowledge and her own research insights. Damn it, why did this portion of knowledge and research insights seem to be related to bewitching spells? Was there a need to ask? Wasn't the answer obvious? Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around the beast deity's neck and kissed him on the cheek. "You are abusing your power for personal gain. But Dad, I really like you more and more." Sure enough, people with a biological father are different. The beast deity rubbed Gu Mingming's little head gently. "I forcefully dragged you into the beast world and destroyed your original life. I made you suffer so much and suffer so much. Father will also feel guilty." Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "Actually, it's nothing much. Although there have been many troubling matters recently, at least I have family here." It was better than being all alone in the original world, forsaken and helpless. But I think it's better for you to hold on to this guilty heart. This is more beneficial to me. The beast deity smiled benevolently and nodded. All right. Gu Mingming released the beast deity's neck and was just about to leave when she paused. She turned to look at the beast deity and asked, "Oh, that's right, father. Can't we really send Wabi to Snake's side?" The beast deity was taken aback, as if he did not expect Gu Mingming to mention this. Chapter 900. The beast deity just nodded and did not say a word. Gu Mingming closed her eyes and fell backwards with her back straight. A wave of dizziness accompanied by the weightlessness of free fall made Gu Mingming frown. She gathered her limbs together and sat up abruptly. She got up too suddenly, and her head was a little dizzy. Her body tilted, and she was leaning into a warm embrace. "You're awake?" Before she finished her sentence, a cup of water was already placed in front of Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming lowered her head to drink a mouthful, and then looked up to meet Elvis's deep and gentle eyes. Chuckling, Gu Mingming kissed Elvis's chin and said, "It's so good to see you the moment I open my eyes." Elvis felt a surge of warmth in his heart because of Gu Mingming's words, moistening the gentleness and pampering in his blue eyes. He kissed her brows and said, "I am always here. You will definitely be able to see me whenever you want to." Gu Mingming smiled and nodded in agreement. Then, she leaned into his arms and said, "How long did I sleep for this time?" "4 days." Elvis asked worriedly, "Are you hungry?" "A little." Gu Mingming nodded and answered. Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's limbs to help her wake up, so that her body would not be able to react after sleeping for too long, and it would be uncomfortable to get off the bed directly. "Leah saw that you have the intention to wake up, and has already gone to prepare food. Wake up a little, and we will go downstairs." Gu Mingming nodded and asked again, "Did anything happen during the 4 days I was asleep?" Elvis shook his head lightly and said, "Nothing much. It's just that Leah was bored and snatched the authority from Oakley's hands." Gu Mingming almost choked on her own saliva. He had already initiated a coup, and he still called it nothing much? Elvis poked Gu Mingming's brows lovingly and said, "Why are you so nervous? With Lee's methods, are you still afraid that he killed Oakley and snatched the authority?" Gu Mingming felt that he was right. Leah rarely solved his problems by killing. He had many ways to make people automatically do things according to his wishes. But Cole would allow Leah to suppress the authority so easily? Gu Mingming expressed her doubts. Elvis paused and smiled helplessly. He looked up at Gu Mingming and said, "He has already achieved his goal, hasn't he?" "Huh?" Gu Mingming looked at Elvis in confusion. Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's calf as he said, "If he wanted Sauter's political power, he could just launch an attack to seize it. Why would he need to control Oakley to achieve his goal? Isn't it too roundabout?" "You mean?" Gu Mingming still did not quite understand. Elvis used the beast's skin to cover one of Gu Mingming's calves properly, before rubbing the other one. He said, "They are enemies, but they don't want to start a war. The best way is to display your abilities and bargaining chips to let the other party weigh the pros and cons. Isn't that right?" "Ha," Gu Mingming chuckled. "So Cole is telling me that no matter how much I dislike him, as long as I can't bear to part with Qi Xian, Sandy and Oakley, I can't do anything to him, right?" Although Elvis was unwilling, he still nodded and said, "He has the people you care about in his hands, so we can only be led by the nose by him. It's a little passive." "So Leah took back control of Sauter, to snatch Oakley back?" Elvis lightly scratched Gu Mingming's little nose and said, "Xiao Ming is so smart." Aside from the topic, yeah, Snake is very domineering, isn't he? Does everyone like him? Snake is no longer a snake now. Oh, he's a normal human now. Like it if you like it, give me the ticket. Chapter 901. Leah was going to handle Oakley's matters, so Gu Mingming did not want to bother too much about it. His situation was different from Sandy's. Sandy's consciousness was controlled by Cole through hypnosis, and it was not voluntary. But Oakley, he did not look like he was being controlled. Gu Mingming did not know what difficulties he had. but she had given Oakley a chance to ask her for help. As long as he was willing to be honest with her, she would help him, wouldn't she? But he still chose to stand opposite her. She had to admit that Oakley's decision made Gu Mingming's heart turn cold. As friends, Gu Mingming would not leave him in the lurch. However, the relationship between them could only be described as friends. The familiar aroma of food wafted from downstairs. Gu Mingming's entire body had been rubbed by Elvis, and her blood had already circulated through her entire body. Gu Mingming felt refreshed. Stretching herself, she allowed Elvis to carry her downstairs. Leah looked up and smiled at Gu Mingming, his eyes curved into crescents. His fluffy and white tail swayed behind him, showing that he was in an extremely good mood. Scooping a bowl of food, he held a small wooden spoon and fed Gu Mingming mouthful by mouthful. Gu Mingming was already used to this kind of behavior. Every time she went to see the beast deity, she would sleep for a few days, and the first meal after waking up would always be Leah feeding her personally. It was as if this was the only way he could ensure that she was full and feel at ease. This seemed like some kind of obsessive-compulsive disorder. But it was not a big deal, so Gu Mingming did not intend to correct him. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Gu Mingming then asked, "Where are Huda and his brothers? Where did they run off to?" Leah replied, "They went hunting with Burke, saying that they wanted to prepare more food for Burke's old tribe. That way, Burke would not have to suffer too much when we leave." "Aren't there 2 other females in the old tribe? Haven't they found a new partner after so long?" Gu Mingming asked casually. Leah chuckled and said, "The males of the Snow Fox tribe will not marry with females from other tribes. If their entire tribe returned to Saint Nazir with us, there might still be hope. But here, that tribe's old, weak, sick and handicapped can only be taken care of by Burke alone." Gu Mingming did not say anything else, and just nodded silently. It was good to let the 3 little ones help their master Burke. After all, Gu Mingming owed him for what happened previously. Even though Cole had plotted to implicate him, it was an undeniable fact that she had also made use of Burke. Perhaps keeping her away from Borg would help him the most. Otherwise, who knew if Cole's next target would be him? "Oh yes, Elvis told me that you have regained control of Solder," Gu Mingming said. Leah washed a fruit and passed it to Gu Mingming. Seeing how she took a bite with her cheeks puffed up like a cute little squirrel, he could not help but smile. Then he nodded and said, "Yeah, after all, I am the 9th Highness of the Snow Fox tribe. Those old foxes want to maintain the honor of their tribe, so they will not let me be under a lynx. So all I did was refuse their offer, and they pushed me to the pinnacle of power. The human heart is the easiest thing to grasp." Gu Mingming asked, "What did they suggest to you?" Chapter 902. Gu Mingming stared at Leah with her eyes wide open. "You agreed?" Leah chuckled seductively. He pinched Gu Mingming's little face. "Didn't I say that I just didn't reject?" Gu Mingming didn't understand. Didn't rejecting mean he agreed? Leah leaned forward and pressed his lips against Gu Mingming's left ear. Not taking the initiative, not rejecting, not taking responsibility. Gu Mingming instinctively blurted out, "Scumbag." Leah shrugged his shoulders and chuckled. Wouldn't it be extremely foolish to treat those old foxes with a kind and beautiful heart? Gu Mingming thought about it. Those old foxes in Solder would only think about their own benefits. When had they ever treated Leah with any sincerity? When Cole set up a trap to harm Leah, they acted like everyone was kicking him when he was down. None of them stood up to speak up for Leah. After that, when Leah chased Cole away, they acted like the monkeys would scatter when the tree was down. They completely forgot how they had relied on Cole to do whatever he wanted all these years. Now raising such conditions to Leah meant that he must have already made a deal with Cole, sacrificing Oakley in exchange for a more advantageous situation. No one should laugh at anyone. No one should look down on anyone. After all, no one was that much nobler than anyone else. They could make use of Leah. Why couldn't Leah make use of them? Leah pecked Gu Mingming's little face. "Leave these things to me. Don't worry about it." Gu Mingming nodded. "I don't want to care about government affairs. It's too troublesome. What I want to ask is, Which female in the tribe has the highest purity of fox seductive fragrance? Leah shifted his body backward to create some distance between him and Gu Mingming. He scrutinized Gu Mingming's little face. His smile gradually spread. So the beast deity taught you the bewitching technique? Gu Mingming nodded in acknowledgement. Leah lowered his head and chuckled. He covered his lips, and his gaze shifted. Gu Mingming was confused by Lee's gaze. What's wrong? Leah didn't say anything. He just shifted his gaze upwards and met Elvis's eyes. Gu Mingming followed Lee's gaze to Elvis. She realized that Elvis's face was so red that it was about to bleed. Hubby, are you not feeling well? Elvis coughed twice and turned his face away. Gu Mingming found it very strange and turned to ask Leah. Don't keep me guessing, what happened? Leah rested his chin on one hand and looked at Elvis. Sigh, first partner Elvis, the head of our family is asking me a question. Can I answer it or not? Gu Mingming could clearly see the teasing look on Lee's face. Although she did not know what it was, to make Elvis blush, she was still very interested to know. The burning spirit of gossip lit up Gu Mingming's eyes. She secretly rubbed her palms together and said, Tell me quickly. I will back you up. What are you afraid of? Leah deliberately nodded his head slowly, his large tail swaying behind him. That look was very despicable. Stretching out his index finger, Leah lifted Gu Mingming's chin gently. His long and affectionate eyes stared at Gu Mingming's bright eyes as he said in a low voice, The purest fox seductive fragrance in this world belongs to you. Chapter 903. Leah nodded and smiled ambiguously. Didn't you realize what you inherited from me? Gu Mingming was stunned for 2 seconds before turning to look behind her. Disappointment, Gu Mingming pouted. No, Leah knocked Gu Mingming's head. What do you mean by such a disappointed expression? You don't like the fox seductive fragrance you inherited from me? Gu Mingming shook her head. Didn't you say that the fox seductive fragrance is emitted from the tail? But I don't have a tail. Leah chuckled. The fox seductive fragrance of males is emitted from the tail. For females, it's from. Leah was halfway through his sentence when his gaze shifted downwards. It stopped between Gu Mingming's legs. Gu Mingming's face flushed red. She used both her hands to block Lee's line of sight. Perverted. Leah waved his hand and held onto Gu Mingming's slender wrist. I'm perverted just by looking at you through your skirt? Then what does it count as if I saw you without a skirt on? And I even ate you before. What does it count as? Lee's words made Gu Mingming extremely embarrassed and furious. But damn it, her body actually reacted when she recalled that night of lust. Leah raised his eyebrows. The corners of his lips curled upwards. My baby Gu Mingming sent me an invitation. So you want it now? No. Gu Mingming retracted her hand shyly. She felt too ashamed to face anyone. So she buried her face into Elvis's chest. But what did she see when she lowered her head? A small tent erected by a beastskin skirt could accommodate a circus. Damn it. Gu Mingming jumped up from Elvis's arms. She took 2 steps back and sat at the corner of the wall. She laughed dryly at Elvis and Leah. She had an expression that said, Don't come any closer. If you come any closer, I'll scream. Leah laughed. I have a certain immunity to the fox seductive fragrance. So it's not much of an effect. But someone. Gu Mingming looked at Elvis. She realized that his face had turned even redder. She suddenly thought of something. She laughed dryly. So how did you find out that I inherited the fox seductive fragrance? Leah looked at Elvis and said, Great first partner. Do you want to personally reenact the process of your cheating? Cheating? Gu Mingming's face was filled with disbelief. Elvis would cheat? She didn't believe it. But Elvis, what was the meaning of not explaining and blushing instead? Leah pulled Elvis's left hand up and waved it in front of Gu Mingming, saying, Here, this is that mistress. Mingming, do you want me to chop it? Puffed. Gu Mingming paused for 3 seconds before bursting out in laughter. So you're saying that I released the fox seductive fragrance when I was unconscious? Elvis couldn't resist it, and had some indescribable interaction with his left hand? Yeah. Leah nodded. He only agreed to a single room, but it made Elvis so embarrassed that his face was about to bleed. Gu Mingming held back her laughter and crawled towards Elvis on all fours like a Persian cat. She placed her hand on his chest and pushed lightly, causing Elvis to fall onto the ground. His entire body stiffened as he stared at Gu Mingming, who was messing around on his chest. She clearly knew that he was going crazy, but she still continued to ignite the fire, making him feel even more uncomfortable. Chapter 904. Gu Mingming pressed her lips gently against Elvis's and did not pull away. She allowed Elvis to take the initiative and deepen the kiss. After a long while, when both of them were short of breath, Elvis finally let go of her. Just as he was about to flip over and press her down to do something indescribable, Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "Now you can already resist the fox's seductive fragrance, unless I wake it up with a kiss." Elvis was stunned for a moment. Then he felt that the fire in his body seemed to be subsiding bit by bit. That bewitched and irrational feeling gradually returned. His heartbeat returned to normal, and his breathing gradually calmed down as well. Looking at Gu Mingming, who was being pressed down by him, Elvis frowned and asked, "What happened?" Gu Mingming smiled and sat up with her arms around Elvis's neck. "I tried the bewitching spell to give you an extra insurance, in case someone uses the fox's seductive fragrance to abduct you while I'm asleep." Torturous. Elvis clenched his teeth. The fire in his body was forcefully extinguished. He was really annoyed, but could not bear to bite her. He flipped over and sat up, hugging her in his arms. Sighing helplessly, he returned to the topic at hand. "You have the purest fox seductive fragrance on you, and you've learned the bewitching spell. So when do you plan to treat Sandy?" Gu Mingming rubbed her brows and said hesitantly, "Sandy is pregnant now, and it's not suitable for her to travel long distances. If I remove the bewitching spell on her now, she will definitely reveal herself. I'm afraid that Cole will use more violent methods to deal with her next time. So I want to wait until she gives birth before removing the bewitching spell. Then, I will send her back to Saint Nazaire to avoid Cole." "Will Cole let her go so easily?" Elvis expressed his doubts. Gu Mingming lowered her head and chuckled. "Someone who has been lonely for an entire winter should be coming to find me soon." Elvis thought for a moment and laughed as well. "You want Wabi to escort Sandy back?" Gu Mingming nodded. But Elvis said, "Aren't you afraid that he will eat Sandy when he's in a bad mood?" Gu Mingming shrugged. "I'll just say that Snake asked him to help me protect Sandy. In that case, he would rather eat himself than eat Sandy. All right. With Wabi holding the fort in Saint Nazaire, it will be difficult for Cole to extend his hand there." Elvis nodded in approval of Gu Mingming's plan. Leah, however, raised his face and placed his hands behind his back. He leaned his upper body backward and said, "I don't think so." Gu Mingming looked at Leah with a questioning gaze. Leah said, "How could Cole not be prepared for anything that we can think of? I'm afraid that Wabi has already fallen into his trap. Getting Wabi to escort Sandy might be part of his plan." Gu Mingming's heart sank. That's right. How could a person like Cole forget about Wabi? Besides, even if we send Sandy away, what can we do? Unless you can hide all the people you care about, he will always have a way to scheme against you one by one. So, I'm afraid hiding Sandy is not a good idea. Leah held onto Gu Mingming's little hand and said, "It's safer to protect your own weak spot in your own arms." "You mean you want me to keep Sandy by my side and protect her myself?" Chapter 905. But Sandy. Gu Mingming was still very worried. Leah pinched Gu Mingming's little nose and said, "Have you forgotten that Cole and I are now in a cooperative relationship? If we want to let bygones be bygones and cooperate seamlessly, we should at least show some sincerity. What do you think?" Gu Mingming frowned, not understanding what he meant. Leah smiled and said, "I will go talk to him and ask him to undo the bewitching spell on Sandy." Gu Mingming was surprised and asked, "He will listen to you?" Leah said, "If he knows that you have the purest fox seductive fragrance and have learned the bewitching spell, even if he does not understand, you can undo it yourself. Do you think he will?" Gu Mingming thought about it and understood Lee's meaning. If Gu Mingming did not have the fox seductive fragrance, and did not know the bewitching spell. She would be begging for mercy if she went to Cole. But Gu Mingming now had the purest fox seductive fragrance, and had learned the bewitching spell. If she went to Cole now, she would be giving him a chance to show his loyalty. Of course Cole would not give up. Nodding, Gu Mingming asked, "Then what should I do?" Leah swayed his tail and smiled. "Nothing. Giving him a chance to express his loyalty doesn't mean that you have to accept it." Gu Mingming laughed and poked at Lee's brows. "You are so naughty, but I like it." Gu Mingming felt much more relaxed now that she had a direction to resolve Oakley's and Sandy's matters. At dinner time, the three little ones returned to the stone castle after playing around. They were all stunned when they saw Gu Mingming, before quickly pouncing into her arms. Gu Mingming looked at the three little ones, and her mood strangely improved. The three of them were clearly only slightly over a year old, but in their half-work state, they looked like 8 or 9-year-old kids. They looked young, but not like 2 or 3-year-old kids. It was a small pity that Gu Mingming had never seen her own children in swaddling clothes. They had maturity that did not match their age, and this made up for Gu Mingming's other regrets. "Let's go find your mother-in-law and have dinner together, all right?" Gu Mingming was still worried about Sandy. When the three little ones heard this, a trace of resistance and awkwardness appeared on their faces. They took 2 steps back and said with some hesitation, "Mom, it's better if you don't go." Why?" Gu Mingming remembered that they had a very good relationship with Sandy, had aside and replied, "Mother-in-law's thoughts are in a mess now. If you go over, you have to be prepared to keep explaining that Qi Xian is the child of you and Cole, as well as twist the facts to prove that you and Cole are partners." Gu Mingming's head started to hurt too. But Sandy was pregnant now, and her mind was sensitive. If she was left alone to let her imagination run wild, it would not be good for her and the fetus. Moreover, she was her first child, so there was no room for any mistakes. Looking at Elvis and Leah, she said helplessly, "The scene might be a little awkward. Do you guys want to accompany me?" Elvis stood up and hugged Gu Mingming in his arms. "I will accompany you." Leah also stood up and patted the dust off his body. "Then I will go and see Cole. If I can convince him, I will bring him to Sandy to remove the bewitching spell." Chapter 906. When Gu Mingming arrived at Sandy's house, she saw Bode preparing food for Sandy. Colin was squatting at the door pitifully, turning his head to look into the house from time to time. It was obvious that he had been chased out. When he saw Gu Mingming, Colin was taken aback for a moment before he suddenly stood up and ran over. He looked at Gu Mingming expectantly and asked, "Is there a solution?" Gu Mingming did not reply and just patted Colin's shoulder. She then jumped down from Elvis's arms and led the three little ones into Sandy's stone house. The males in the house were all very cautious. Sandy sat at the corner of the bed with his face facing the wall, obviously not intending to talk to anyone. Gu Mingming gestured for them to keep quiet. Sandy's males nodded and did not dare to say a word. Gu Mingming walked to Sandy's back and placed her little hand on Sandy's shoulder gently. The moment she touched it, Sandy flung her shoulder fiercely and said angrily, "Don't touch me. You liars, don't touch me." Gu Mingming laughed out loud and placed both her hands on Sandy's shoulders. She then leaned close to Sandy's ear and whispered, "Who is so daring to lie to my little Sandy baby? MMM?" Sandy was taken aback. When she turned around and saw that it was Gu Mingming, she finally relaxed and smiled. She turned around and pulled Gu Mingming's little hand to sit beside her. Seeing the three little ones standing in a row with the males in the house, not daring to come close to her, Sandy felt very wronged again. She twitched her lips and said, "Even you guys want to treat me like this?" The three little ones shook their heads in unison, but did not say a word. Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "All right, go and play with Uncle Colin. Don't disturb me from chatting with your mother-in-law." The three little ones felt as if they had been pardoned and ran out with a grin. Sandy felt wronged and looked at Gu Mingming with watery eyes. "Gu Mingming, what do you think I should do? Why can't I understand some things?" Gu Mingming gently smoothed out the frown on Sandy's forehead. "Haven't you heard of pregnancy making you stupid for 3 years?" Sandy was dumbfounded. Then he nodded, indicating that he had never heard of it before. Gu Mingming smiled and said, "You have to give a portion of your intelligence to your babies now. The dumber you are, the more intelligence you give to your babies, and the smarter they will be. This is a good thing. It proves that my godson will be clever and lovely children in the future." Oh, Sandy listened to Gu Mingming's nonsense with a serious face and agreed with her. Gu Mingming did not feel guilty for lying to a pregnant lady and continued, "What can't you figure out? Ask me." "Well, it's been less than 3 years since I gave birth, and my IQ isn't very high right now, but I'm still willing to use my few remaining brain cells to answer your questions. Say it, what do you want to know?" Sandy pursed her lips and said, "You and Cole haven't reconciled yet." As expected, everything that Sandy could not understand definitely revolved around Cole. Gu Mingming nodded. "I don't intend to reconcile with him." Chapter 907. Gu Mingming pretended to be in deep thought and did not speak for a long while. Looking at Sandy's worried expression, she suddenly smiled and nodded. All right. Since my precious Sandy is pleading for him, I will not abandon him." Cole was not Gu Mingming's partner. Even if she wanted to abandon him, she could not. So Gu Mingming did not lie to Sandy. Sandy heaved a sigh of relief and continued, "Gu Mingming, I think I know why you are angry, but I just can't remember why you and Cole fought to the extent that you are not allowing him to return home. Also, Qixuan is a wolf and Cole is a fox. Why do I remember that Qixuan is your and Cole's child?" Gu Mingming chuckled. "This is what you can't figure out?" Sandy blinked innocently, as if waiting for Gu Mingming to clear her doubts. Gu Mingming tilted her head with a smile. "I am the daughter of the beast deity. I have the genes of hundreds of beasts in my body. Of course, the children I give birth to will mostly depend on their father's race. But there is also a chance that they will inherit my genes. Huda and his brothers inherited their genes from Elvis, but Qixuan inherited mine. Well, who knows, I might have a few little bears with Leah next time." Ah. Sandy stared at Gu Mingming in bewilderment. "Really?" Gu Mingming nodded earnestly. "I am such an awesome person. I am someone who can fly 90,000 miles into the sky." "What?" Sandy did not understand. Gu Mingming chuckled. "It means that I can fly into the sky at any time and stand shoulder to shoulder with the sun." Sandy burst out laughing. She tapped Gu Mingming's brow and said, "I've spoiled your ability." Gu Mingming also laughed out loud. "Is there anything else you can't figure out? Ask me all at once. I will answer you." Sandy felt much better now that she had resolved the issue of Cole and Qixuan's relationship. It was as if Gu Mingming had smashed a huge rock that had been pressing down on her heart. She felt much more relaxed. Her tone also became lighter. "You still haven't told me why you quarreled with Cole to the extent that you are not allowing him to return home?" Gu Mingming thought for a while and said, "Ellie, do you still remember?" Sandy nodded to show that he remembered. Gu Mingming said in disdain, "I found out that he and Ellie had an affair." "What?" Sandy slammed the table and stood up, glaring angrily at him. Gu Mingming did not doubt that if Cole was standing there, Sandy would rush forward and fight him to the death. Gu Mingming tugged at Sandy's arm and said, calm down, calm down. You're a pregnant woman, so you need to know how to control your emotions. It's not good for the baby to be overjoyed or angry." Sandy gritted his teeth and sat down. How dare he?" Gu Mingming shrugged and said, "Catching an adulterer in bed. Used shoes make a pair. I saw it with my own eyes. How can it be wrong? No wonder you were so angry that you didn't want him anymore. How shameless." Sandy was infuriated. She wanted to curse, but she suddenly realized that she had no words to describe her disgust. Gu Mingming patted Sandy's back to calm her down. "Now do you know why he only told you that he angered me and asked you to help him plead for leniency, but did not tell you what he did wrong?" Chapter 908. Gu Mingming could not stop giggling. This was the difference between Sandy and Oakley. Even if Sandy was hypnotized, Gu Mingming was still the most important person in her heart. Gu Mingming tugged at the indignant Sandy, and pointed at Colin with her chin. Now do you understand why they all said Cole is not my partner? Sandy bit her lower lip and nodded. Cole did such a thing and all the males are ashamed of him. They are naturally unwilling to talk about his dirty deeds. Moreover, Colin was once your guard. Even in front of me, he still has to protect your image. I misunderstood Colin. Gu Mingming nodded. So can we let Colin go home now? Sandy blushed. Colin, I am thirsty. I want to drink water. Colin's ears had been pricking up. He was stunned by Gu Mingming's nonsense. Sometimes, he almost suspected that Gu Mingming was speaking the truth. So in terms of bluffing, no one could beat Gu Mingming. When he heard Sandy call his name, Colin gave Gu Mingming a thumbs up in his heart. She was indeed the great messenger. She had a glib tongue and her teeth were as sharp as steel. Coming. Colin used the small bamboo cup that Gu Mingming had given Sandy previously to fill a cup of water and passed it to her. His honest face had a flattering smile, and his voice was filled with flattery. Drink slowly, don't choke. Sandy drank a small cup. She then looked at Colin with a red face. This winter you have suffered. I will make it up to you. Gu Mingming almost choked on her own saliva. Just by looking at Sandy and Colin's expressions, she knew what she meant by make it up to him. Then, I will bring the 3 little ones back first. I think, you guys should be quite busy too. Gu Mingming felt that she could not stay any longer. Otherwise, what if Sandy and Colin pulled her over to chat while having fun? The beast world was so open to such matters. Sandy would definitely do such a thing. Accompany me for a while more. Sandy held Gu Mingming's little hand and begged. Gu Mingming smiled as she rubbed Sandy's little head. You better accompany Colin. I will return to the territory first. I'll come and see you tomorrow, okay? Sandy glanced at Colin shyly before nodding her head, before reluctantly letting go of Gu Mingming's hand. When Gu Mingming walked past Colin, she patted his shoulder and said earnestly, I know you've been a vegetarian for the entire winter, but Sandy's tummy can't take any more torment. You be more gentle. With that, Gu Mingming walked out of the cave with a blushing face. Every time this happened, Gu Mingming would resent Snake for giving her a pair of sharp ears. She had already been running all the way, but she still could not shake off the sounds behind her. Elvis looked at Gu Mingming running out with the 3 little ones with a flushed face. Combined with the sounds coming from the cave, he instantly understood what was going on. So he did not ask any more questions, and just scooped Gu Mingming into his arms before striding away. When they returned to the stone castle, Leo was squatting at the entrance, resting his chin on his hands as he stared at their way back in boredom. Chapter 909. Gu Mingming was taken aback. She looked at Leah and frowned. She felt that there was something wrong with Leah, but she could not pinpoint what was wrong. She sized Leah up, met his long and affectionate eyes, and then looked at his pretentious and sly look. Gu Mingming smiled self-mockingly. Perhaps it was because she was scared of Cole's schemes that she saw something wrong with everything. After dispelling her suspicions, Gu Mingming asked, You met Cole? Leah nodded as a reply. Gu Mingming asked again, What did he say? Leah said nonchalantly, He made a deal with me. As long as I give him one thing, he promised to remove Sandy's bewitching spell and never find trouble with her again. Oh. Gu Mingming raised her brows with an unfriendly expression. She asked nervously, What does he want from you? Leah shook his head and said, I can't tell you now. You will know when the time comes. Gu Mingming frowned and said with a serious expression, You remember what you promised me, right? Leah nodded and held Gu Mingming's hand to kiss it. He said, Don't worry, I know what I am doing, Elvis, and I will not do anything that will make you sad. Gu Mingming nodded and did not say another word. The 3 young ones requested Gu Mingming to look for Burke in front of the stone castle. Gu Mingming agreed. So in the huge stone castle, there were only Elvis, Leah, and Gu Mingming. Elvis started a fire, and Gu Mingming said she was hungry, so she asked Leah to roast some meat for her. Lee's actions were skilled, and he quickly roasted the meat. Gu Mingming took the roasted meat and slowly brought it to her mouth. She looked at Lee's expectant gaze, but paused before biting into it. I can't pretend anymore. Gu Mengmeng threw the roasted meat away without a trace of a smile on her face. She looked coldly at the person sitting opposite her and said, Cole, don't tell me you think I would recognize my own man wrongly? The person sitting opposite Gu Mengmeng was stunned for a moment. He held his forehead and smiled bitterly. He shook his head helplessly and said, I knew you would see through me, but I didn't expect it to be so fast. Can you tell me, where is the flaw this time? Speechless, Gu Mengmeng said, Can you remove this illusion for me first? Seeing you use Li's face to talk to me makes me very angry. Cole tugged at his hair and said innocently, You want to hit me but can't bear to? Gu Mengmeng ignored him and turned to look at Elvis. Hubby, in your eyes, who is he? Elvis, Cole. Gu Mengmeng nodded, then stood up and retreated to one side, saying, Then beat him up. Elvis did not reply and just stood up silently. His aura was fully unleashed, and his killing intent was unbridled. Cole waved his hand and said, All right, don't be angry. I will answer your question first, all right? Gu Mengmeng leaned into Elvis's arms and crossed her arms in front of her chest, not saying a word. Elvis caught Gu Mengmeng in tacit understanding and wrapped his arms around her shoulders. He instantly retracted his killing intent and just stared coldly at Cole. Cole was still sitting at the same spot and had no intention of getting up. He just said, I proposed a deal with him. Let me be Leah for a day, and I will remove the bewitching spell on Sandy. Then, I will never find trouble with her and use her to threaten you again. But Leah rejected my proposal, so I could only use other methods to temporarily keep him in the meeting room. Aside from the topic, today's update has ended. Susu continued to save chapters with all her might. Chapter 9:10. What did you do to Leah? Gu Mengmeng gritted her teeth and asked. Cole smiled but did not answer. Instead he asked, Then, now it's your turn to answer my question. Let me be Leah for a day. At this time tomorrow, I will remove the bewitching spell from that half-orc female and return the real Leah to you. How about that? Are you in on this deal? Gu Mengmeng took a step forward. The Beast King's pressure had already started to spread around her. Her face was dark and gloomy. It was frighteningly cold. I am asking you, what did you do to Leah? Faced with Gu Mengmeng's anger, an instinctive fear spread throughout Cole's body. And this fear of death made him unusually excited. So, you have decided to kill me? Cole smiled sinisterly. I knew it. I knew you and I are the same kind. Anyone who obstructs us deserves to die. Killing to stop killing is the way to rule the world. Come, my dear master. Please do whatever you want of me, whip me and then kill me. It is my honor to be the first skeleton on your journey to greatness. With that, Cole opened his arms wide and looked at Gu Mengmeng with an expectant and longing gaze. Gu Mengmeng could not bear to kill him. She was disgusted. She just wanted to kill someone, not play some perverted S&M game with Cole. Why the hell was he so excited? Gu Mengmeng had goosebumps all over her body. She frowned and took a step back in disgust. It was as if Cole had some weird infectious disease on his body. Let me. Elvis tilted his head and asked Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng touched her left ear gently. The mark on her ear was still there, and she did not feel any discomfort. She knew that as long as Leah was in danger or suffered from serious injuries, her mark would feel pain. And if Leah died, the mark on her ear would also disappear. Now that the mark was fine and did not feel anything strange, it meant that Leah was at least safe. From what Cole had said just now, he had already predicted that he would be exposed. But he still came. Then, it could only mean that he had nothing to fear. In other words, if she really killed Cole, Leah would be the first to die with him. Qixian would be the second. In that case, Oakley and Sandy would not be able to escape. In order to kill a pervert, he had to sacrifice 4 of his closest friends. This was not a good deal. Gu Mengmeng took a deep breath and sat back by the fire. She stared coldly at Cole and said, Keep your perverted face to yourself. You're disgusting me. Cole looked at Gu Mengmeng in disappointment. You are not killing me again? Gu Mengmeng snorted coldly and said, You have all the people important to me in your hands. Aren't you trying to coerce me into not being able to kill you? Why are you pretending to be eager to die now? If you really want to die, then return my people. As long as they are safe, I will fulfill your wish to die. There are thousands of ways to die for you to choose. I guarantee that you'll die, and I guarantee that you'll die. If you don't die, you'll die for free. Cole chuckled and said, Ah, so you thought that I gathered them to save my life? Gu, you don't understand me. Gu Mingming frowned and did not comment. Chapter 9:11. As long as you kill them, you will no longer have any weaknesses. Nothing in this world will be able to threaten you. You will be the supreme deity, the most perfect ruler. Cole said those crazy words with a face full of longing. It was as if the blood-stained world had already appeared in front of him. The smell of blood had already surrounded him, and he could feel the blood in his entire body boiling. Gu Mingming was really speechless. The person in front of her was a lunatic, and should be locked up in a mental hospital for treatment. If you want to rule the world so much, you can just do it yourself. Why must I do it? Cole looked at Gu Mingming bitterly. His eyes flickered with endless resentment. You are my master. How can you be ruled by me? I am not your master. Don't call me by such a disgusting name. Gu Mingming's attitude was clearly filled with disgust and disdain. Cole did not seem to mind Gu Mingming's disgust. Instead, he looked as if he was enjoying it. All right, I will not call you master anymore. I will only call you Gu. Gu Mingming was so disgusted that she wanted to beat him up. But the price of killing this fellow was too high. I will endure. Gu, I have already answered one of your questions. Isn't it time for you to answer me? Cole grinned at Gu Mingming. How did you know that I am not Leah? Or did I go wrong? I clearly imitated him very well. Gu Mingming took a deep breath and said in an extremely disdainful tone. Imitated? How so? You are a fake from head to toe. Unless I am blind, I can't tell. Cole smacked his lips. He had a helpless expression on his face. He looked down at himself and shook his head with a smile. A fake can imitate the original perfectly, but if the original imitates a fake, it will be nondescript. TSK. It is indeed not advisable to go against the flow. But can you tell me which detail made you so sure that I am a fake? Gu Mingming rolled her eyes. Leah does not hide any secrets from me. As long as I ask, he will definitely tell me the truth. Leah will never tell me things like, I can't tell you for the time being. Cole nodded and said, I see. Gu Mingming said, since everything is out in the open now, can you remove this facade? I'm really annoyed when I see you bearing Lee's face. Cole shook his head and said, so you don't intend to accept my suggestion? Sandy's bewitchment. It's fine even if you don't understand. I'll remove this illusion. Gu Mingming narrowed her eyes. Are you threatening me? Cole thought for a moment and nodded. I guess so. So what do you plan to choose? Will you accept my threat? Should I endure the fire in my heart? Or give up on removing Sandy's bewitching spell? Gu Mingming laughed coldly and asked instead of answering. Didn't Leah tell you that I can also use bewitching spells and that I'm better at it than you? Cole nodded and said he did. With that, Cole looked at Elvis and said, I have also personally witnessed your abilities. Gu Mingming also turned back to look at Elvis, and understood that Cole was referring to Elvis not being bewitched by the illusion. It was just a small experiment on Elvis as insurance, but she did not expect it to be used so soon. Chapter 9:12. No, it's the exact opposite. Cole maintained his usual smile, with a tinge of elegance, but more of craftiness and maliciousness, as though everything was within his calculations. He said with certainty and confidence, It is precisely because I never dared to underestimate Gu that the bewitching spell I placed on Sandy is a dead knot. Unless I personally remove it, otherwise, even if I use a stronger power to stack the bewitching spell, it will still trigger the bewitching spell I placed on Sandy, and she will die on the spot. Gu Mingming was taken aback. She frowned and her heart twitched. Luckily, she did not recklessly remove Sandy's hypnosis spell today, but came up with a lie to fool her. Otherwise, the consequences would be dire. At this point, Gu Mingming's gaze towards Cole was filled with even more hatred. She said coldly, "How can I be sure that you are not lying to me?" Cole seemed to be pondering over this question, but he suddenly smiled and said, "When have I ever lied to the great messenger? When they kidnapped the little wolves, she was the one who voluntarily came to ask for help. He said that Ellie and a fifth-level master kidnapped the little wolves, but he never denied that the master was him. The wound on his chest was caused by Ellie's bite, and it was true that the little wolves were brought back to the Snake King Valley. He had only lured her into the trap step by step, but he had never told her a lie in the real sense. How could it be so ironic? He was a scumbag who was despised by Gu Mingming to the point of being useless, yet he still had a fine quality of honesty. You schemed so hard to scheme against Sandy just to be Leah for a day? Gu Mingming felt that this was very strange, wasn't it? Cole nodded and said, "I'm just very curious. What made that trash who only knows how to struggle in the mud, bare his teeth and clamor, break free from my shackles? I also want to experience life after letting go of my hatred. And what exactly is left of it?" Gu Mingming clenched her fists. Leah had told her before that Cole's interest was not in killing, but in torturing others. She suddenly felt that Jiaoyu's words were too true. A normal person would never win against a lunatic. He would pull you into his vicious thinking cycle, then use his rich experience to defeat you. After all, he was really crazy, while you still had your rationality and a bottom line. Gu Mingming leaned into Elvis's arms and said, "If you want to know, you have to let go of your hatred and try. No matter how well you imitate him, you are not Leah. Not to mention one day, even if you were given a lifetime, you would never know what he had and what he had obtained." "Who knows?" Cole chuckled. "I just want to try. Great emissary, are you willing to discuss this deal with me? I will only be Leah for one day. Tomorrow, I will completely return Sandy to you." Gu Mingming smiled and said, But Leah never makes me wait for the things I want. If it was Leah, he would not let me worry because of Sandy. As long as he could do it, he would immediately remove the bewitching spell on Sandy. What about you? If it's for me, can you do it too?" Cole deeply agreed with Gu Mingming's words. He smiled at Gu Mingming, his gaze filled with indulgence and love. "I can do anything for Agu." With that, Cole stood up and walked to Gu Mingming's side. He reached out to hold Gu Mingming's hand, but was blocked by Elvis. He said coldly, "Do you want to die?" Chapter 913. Cole clenched his fists and smiled. "You cannot challenge the authority of the first partner. It is a family rule. I got carried away for a moment, I apologize." Elvis ignored him. Follow the family rules? Cole was not qualified to do so. Gu Mingming returned, but Sandy and Colin's entanglement had not ended. When she walked near them, Gu Mingming's face was full of awkwardness. She was so anxious to hypnotize Sandy that she had forgotten about the matter of compensating Colin. "How about tomorrow?" Gu Mingming hugged Elvis's neck and asked. Elvis knew how worried Gu Mingming was for Sandy, and Cole was a dangerous and uncertain factor. Who knew if he would disappear after saying that he was willing to remove the bewitching spell for Sandy? No need. With that, Elvis shrugged his shoulders and started emitting the pressure of a fifth-level orc. Cole was taken aback at first. Xianji smiled and rotated his neck, also starting to emit his beast pressure. Gu Mingming did not understand what was going on at first, until she saw Colin stumbling out of the stone house. That expression was really amazing. Gu Mingming was even more embarrassed than before. Damn it, would Colin get sick from being forcefully interrupted? Won't it affect Sandy's happiness for the rest of her life? Gu Mingming felt a little guilty. Elvis did not mind and said, "If Colin can't do it, don't we still have Bode and the rest? Don't worry, Sandy will not feel aggrieved." There was such a benefit to having more husbands. There was a backup. Looking at Colin, Gu Mingming said guiltily, "Colin, I've wronged you." Elvis did not bother about Colin at all. He estimated that Bode and the rest had cleaned up Sandy and directly walked in. When he passed by Colin, he said, "In order to protect Sandy's life, not to mention impotence, even if we skin him alive, he would not even frown." Colin was speechless when he heard Elvis's words. Elvis was stunned. Gu Mingming did not say anything else, and just followed Elvis to the door of the stone house. Bode and Sandy's other partners each supported Sandy out. Sandy looked at Gu Mingming with a blushing face and asked shyly, "Gu Mingming, are you looking for me?" Gu Mingming really felt that it was immoral to interrupt him at this moment, so she was at a loss for words, and did not know how to reply. Seeing that Gu Mingming did not reply, Sandy looked to her side and saw Cole. Because she had Cole's bewitching spell on her, Cole's current disguise was ineffective in front of her. Her large, watery eyes immediately lost all traces of innocence. She pulled Gu Mingming from Elvis's arms and used her as a shield. Her bare claws immediately flashed out. She glared at Cole and Elvis with wariness and hatred. "Elvis, I didn't expect you to be such a person. My Gu Mingming is really blind. Why did she choose you as her first partner back then?" Gu Mingming and Elvis were dumbfounded. Why didn't they scold Cole but Elvis? If it was someone else flashing their claws so arrogantly in front of Elvis today, Elvis would definitely break that person's neck before he could even finish saying his name. However, the person in front of him was someone he couldn't afford to offend. Not for any other reason, but because if this crazy bear died, Xiaoming would definitely be sad. However, he could tolerate her arrogance, but he could not tolerate one thing. "You're Gu Mingming." Chapter 9:14. Sandy was usually timid and adorable, but when she got serious, she was not weak at all. She was willing to risk her life for Gu Mingming. Disregarding the fact that she was pregnant, she glared at Elvis with the "if you want to touch Gu Mingming, you have to do it over my dead body" attitude, not giving in at all. Bode and Colin were so scared that their calves were cramping up, afraid that Elvis would rashly slap them with his claws. That would be the end of one corpse. But Sandy did not care at all. She stood in front of Elvis, and Leah like a mother hen protecting her chicks. Stiffening her neck, she said, "Yes, it's mine. So what?" With that, she pointed a bare claw at Cole and said furiously, "This scum did something shameless with Ellie. As Gu Mingming's first partner, why didn't you kill him? You actually allowed him to wander around Gu Mingming and disgust her. From this, it can be seen that you don't care about Gu Mingming at all. Even if you don't cherish her, I will. As long as I, Sandy, have a bite to eat, I will not let my Gu Mingming starve. You two shameless bastards, get lost." Elvis's face turned green and white from Sandy's scolding. He gritted his teeth and looked at the little person hiding behind Sandy, who was gloating at his misfortune. Seeing how she was smiling so widely that her eyes were curved into a line, but she was still trying her best to hold it in, just like a silent phone with the vibration mode switched on. That smug look on her face instantly extinguished the fire in Elvis's chest. How long had it been since she last smiled like this? It seemed like she had not done any pranks ever since Snake died. He had not seen that sly and mischievous smile on her face for a long time. Just based on that smile, he could tolerate Sandy's scolding no matter how harsh it was. Moreover, although Elvis felt that it was unnecessary, he still treasured the friendship of having one more person who was willing to risk everything to protect Gu Mingming. In the worst-case scenario, even if Sandy did something even more rude today, so what? As long as Gu Mingming still treated Sandy as an important friend, Elvis would not do anything to hurt her. After his anger subsided, Elvis could only smile helplessly. He took a step to the side and circled behind Sandy to carry her in his arms. Then he signaled Colin and Bode to restrain Sandy, who was about to snatch her from his arms again, with a glance. He then said leisurely, "I brought him here today to let you seek justice for Xiaoming. How do you think we should kill them? Come up with an idea, and I'll execute it." Sandy stopped struggling and looked at Elvis quietly, asking, "Really? Are you siding with that scumbag?" Elvis shook his head and said, "In this whole world, I will only side with Xiaoming." "That's more like it." Sandy finally heaved a sigh of relief. She then turned around and stared at Cole fearlessly. "Let me tell Cole, just saying your name makes me feel disgusted. You and Ellie did that kind of thing, yet you still acted innocent and pitiful in front of me. You wanted to brush it off with a light sentence of, I did something wrong and made her angry. I, Sandy, was blinded by lard to put in a good word for you in front of Gu Mengmeng. But now I know everything. Let me tell you, I will never help you again. If you still have a little bit of conscience, you should go to the platform of the deity's punishment and ask the beast deity to cleanse your dirty body and soul. Aside from the topic. Chapter 9:15. When had Cole ever been scolded like this before? Although he was not as respected as Big Brother and Leah, he was still the second highness of the messenger's tribe. Who would not be respectful in front of him? Even when his father was still alive, he had never reprimanded him like this. Sandy's scolding was a strange experience for him. He felt that he should be angry, but for some reason he could not be angry. Maybe, was it because he had grasped onto a very important piece of information? Agu, you care a lot about the matter between Ellie and me? Are you jealous? Cole's smile was filled with a sense of contentment. He tilted his head and looked past Sandy, landing his gaze on Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng did not know whether to laugh or cry. She had originally made up a lie to cover up the loophole in the bewitching spell that Cole had placed on Sandy. Now it was hard for her to defend herself. Laughing dryly, Gu Mengmeng said, Do what you have to do, don't care about those useless things. But Cole tapped his chin lightly with his finger and said, But this is the first time I have been scolded in my entire life. After being scolded so harshly, I should at least get to the bottom of it, right? If what she said is true, then I am willing to be scolded. But if she is spreading rumors, why should I save someone who is slandering me? From what he said, if she did not admit that she cared a lot about the matter between him and Ellie, he would not save Sandy. Gu Mengmeng was so angry that her teeth were itching, but she did not want to let him have his way. But Sandy could not just leave her be. If she were to overlay the hypnosis, it would cause harm to Sandy's body. Gu Mengmeng did not want to risk Sandy's safety. After weighing the pros and cons, Gu Mengmeng decided to say something against her will. She stared at Cole, trying hard to believe that the person in front of her was Leah. Just as she was about to speak, she saw a bare paw smack onto Cole's shoulder. Even Cole staggered from the slap and stumbled to the side. He stared at Sandy with a malicious gaze, his sharp claws and fangs flashing. Almost instantly, he instinctively attacked Sandy. Bode and Colin had been paying attention to Sandy's movements. Naturally, they had long discovered her movements, but it was too late to tell her not to act rashly. Thus, they could only make the most basic defensive response in an instant. Bode pulled Sandy back and protected her in his arms. He turned around and faced his back to Cole. Colin stood in front of Bode and used his own arm to catch Cole. After Colin and Sandy had made it, they were already third-level beasts. In the beast world, they were already considered to be above-average masters. Under normal circumstances, they were more than enough to protect a female. However, under normal circumstances, this did not include fighting against level 5 orcs. Even if Cole was a crippled beast, he had stayed at the peak of 5th level for so long. In addition to that, he had received Sauter's systematic training and had fought many stray beasts in secret. His abilities, if they were to really fight, he would at least be on par with Elvis now. How could a level 3 Colin withstand it? With this slap, Colin's arm immediately folded up in a weird position. It looked like it was fractured. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback by the sudden turn of events and rushed to Colin 2 seconds too late. Colin was half a step away from Gu Mengmeng, and his nose was almost touching Cole's face to face. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.